Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of Working Progress. Not only is it the final episode of the year, it's also an episode dedicated to celebrating TTI's 40th anniversary. We've got some very special guests that are going to join us in just a moment, but first, we have some business to take care of. Before we jump in, I'd like to pass the official Working Progress hosting torch to Shauna Adenolfi, your new host. Welcome, Shauna.
Thank you, Brittany. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Now, Shauna has 19 years of experience with TTI. She's worked inside of our network with our North American network, and most recently for a few years in the global community. So she really knows our network and our assessments. She's recently transitioned into the Partner Experience Manager, and her focus is on open communication, a people-first approach, and creating success-driven outcomes.
Well, wow. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Brittany. I'm truly honored to be stepping into this role as the host of the Working Progress podcast. You have built a wonderful foundation and one that I am excited to carry forward.
Thank you very much. Now, as we just heard, you're no stranger to the network, and you've been around for almost half of TTI's existence.
Yes.
And so before I officially hand things over, just a quick little interview, one little question. What is it? What is it that makes TTI so special? Because you wouldn't hang out for that long if there wasn't something special about TTI.
No, not at all. So what makes TTI so special is its unwavering commitment to innovation and its people-first approach. So TTI is always focused on empowering people, organizations to really unlock their full human potential. And we do that through our research-backed assessments. And we really focus on creating those transformative experiences. Another thing that I love about TTI are the partners. I mean, our partners are the heart of what we do. They take the assessments and they really help create a real change, both professionally and personally. And I know for myself, TTI has really helped shape every relationship that I have created. And I really try and focus on meeting people where they are. So it's really that synergy between innovation, impact, and then collaboration that makes TTI so special and keeps TTI growing stronger each and every year.
Well, it's obvious that our viewers and our listeners are in great hands. Thank you so much for sharing. I can tell, I know, but I hope others can tell as well how passionate you are about this organization and this new role and this new journey. We're excited to have you. So without further ado, I'm officially passing things over to you, and we'll get on to the fun stuff celebrating the 40th anniversary.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. As Brittany mentioned, we have some very special guests here to share some of their stories, insights, and really just reminisce about the last 40 years. We have 3 members of our executive team here with us today. We have Dave Bonnstetter, who is the president, owner, and co-founder of TTI. We also have Dr. Ron Bonnstetter, who's the senior vice president of research and product development. And then we have Vanessa Boettcher. She is the vice president of global distribution. So welcome, everyone. 40 years. Dave, Ron, you guys have been here from the very beginning. Does it feel like it's been 40 years?
No.
I'm sure that you both have a lot of stories and memories to share. Vanessa, you've been here for 23 years. So I would like to start with the same question that Brittany asked me. What do you think makes TTI so special?
Well, hopefully all 3 of us will respond to that. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that it has always been, our partners are so important that they're not partners, they're family. And the relationships that this business is built on, I think is just exceptional.
Absolutely. Vanessa?
I think it's a mixture of a few things. Is the partners, all of our network in the U.S. and global, and it is the legacy from Bill Bonnstetter, the passion, the vision that he saw, the expertise of Dave putting all of this together in a software or in a platform actually that allow us to be the leaders in the industry for so long. It's a mixture of all of that that has made TTI so unique and special for so many years.
Absolutely.
And I would say it's definitely the assessments help you understand yourself and others, and then how that gets applied. And then seeing the network, you didn't have that vision at the very beginning. There was just a handful of them. And then it grew into a nice network that really shared and made impact. And, even after Bill's passing, to get emails and letters from people just thanking Bill and myself for what TTI provided for them and the impact they were able to make. That makes it very special.
Very special. So, Dave, one of the things when I was pulling the 40 Forward History Museum together, you shared a story with me about how you moved from Iowa to Arizona. And I thought it was a really fun story. So would you mind sharing with everyone how you ended up from the Midwest to Arizona and then in particular Scottsdale?
Okay. So the original software was written when I was attending University of Iowa in Iowa City. And Bill and John had the TTI office in Ames, so that's cyclone territory.
Yes.
So on the weekends, I would drive back and forth. And, they used to dictate talking to a recorder, and then someone would type up the assessments. And then one day they were like, hey, can we computerize this? So that was all done when I was in college. Well, after I was out and moved back, and we actually moved the office back to Mason City, Iowa, I was like... I thought I could move to, my buddy was actually going to go to school in San Diego. And I'm like, well, I can go there. My mom lives there. I've been there many a time. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to move out there and I can still work from, and this is in the day when the internet wasn't around. You had 14.4 baud modems and you had to mail it or slowly transmit it. And so we went out there and I was about there 9 months. And then my buddy didn't like the school, so he wanted to move back. So I'm like, it's not quite the same. So I thought, I'll move back too. From San Diego to Iowa in the middle of winter.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the kicker. And so when you're away for that long and then you come back, in the next 3 months, it's cloud-covered gray skies. I did say to my dad several times, like, why are we here? And then he went to the Iowa State Lottery Commission to see if he could get a loan to get some money to expand the business. And we were declined. And they said, you should pursue some other avenues. So Bill's famous line was, we did. It was I-35 South and I-80 West. But to get to that, since I had been to San Diego, I had met Kyla, and she had some friends in Phoenix. And I spent my summers in Arizona visiting my mom in between school. And so I was familiar with both places. I'm like, Dad, you ought to look at those two places. And so he flew to both cities, met with the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce and met with the San Diego Chamber of Commerce, and he picked Scottsdale. There were a lot of Iowans already down here, and I think that helped pick this spot. And believe me, before we moved, you would get that. Like DuPont was like, Mason City, where? And so we got a lot of those questions when we were in Iowa. When we moved down to Scottsdale, they stopped. And so that really was a big part of our growth. There were other reasons, but that's the move has always been great.
Well, coming from the Midwest myself, I do know that we have a lot of Midwesterners that have come to Arizona, either just coming from, wintering here. So I'm glad that you guys picked Scottsdale. It's clearly been a good choice. So Dr. Ron, can you share one of your favorite stories about a sales call through farm country in Iowa with your brother, Bill?
Well, Bill was 12 years older than I, and he ended up being my babysitter from time to time. So I ended up having to go with him when he probably was reluctant, but I was still with him. And so I recall being on a series of trips where he was photographing farmsteads. And he explained that he was helping people sell to farmers by photographing the lane and the farmstead itself, and then correlating the behavioral style of the farmer to the layout of the farm. And I recall specifically one farm where we drove in, the lane was rows of hollyhock on both sides as we drove in. And he said, now notice how meticulous this farmer is. Notice how everything is in place. And he said, that will tell you how you should address the sale of this person. And another one was really cool. It was really a mess. Everything was out of place, but there was a brand new John Deere tractor sitting in front. He said, that also tells you something about what this person cares about and their behavioral style and how you should sell to them. I thought that's really cool that you could identify that kind of stuff. Actually, that was related to DISC. I did get stuck with him more than he wanted. So I ended up having to be there where he was actually teaching a marketing course, and I had to go with him to class one day. And the lesson that day was knowing when to sell and when to shut up. And he said, I used to sell carpeting at Sears, and I did a reverse analysis, and I realized the more I learned about carpeting, the less I sold. And what he was really saying, and he gave the example that he ended it beautifully. He said, a lady came in after I had figured this out, that I was telling them more than they wanted to know. And she said, I really like this carpeting. And he bit his tongue and he said, how many yards would you like? And that was a powerful lesson for this little kid sitting in the back row of a marketing class about things you could learn about people that would help you.
Wow. So it really is about observation when it comes to the DISC behavioral style.
Yeah, a major part of it.
Yes. Well, Vanessa, for you, can you talk a little bit about going global? TTI expanded beyond the U.S. How has that impacted TTI? And where do you think what's that going to look like in the future?
Well, it's definitely been quite the journey, right? My very first day at TTI was during Winter's Conference in January of 2002. And my very first day was in the middle of that conference. And so I was introduced to Judy Suter and to the staff, a majority of it. I have met Dave and Rick in my initial interview, and that was the only two people I knew. Wow. From there on, it has been a fantastic journey. I've been witnessing through the years our growth in all these different countries. We started with a very small network. Even before I came on board, there was a small network already going on in a few countries. But from there on, we went to just having a handful of partners to now having direct presence in 55 countries, having a network of master distributors of 21 that help us cover all these markets directly. I have seen our languages grow. So we went from just having a few languages available in DISC when I started years ago to now we have over 48 languages available in DISC. And we have presence in over 100 countries, which is quite the achievement. Our assessments have been embraced in gigantic organizations worldwide. All of our assessments continue to be super well received and key for the development of these companies. I am really excited for where we're going to go. We have a really solid team. We have a very strong vision for what's coming. And we are in such a special moment for TTI because I know our global presence is about to explode. We're going to grow it a lot more. The company now is working towards becoming truly a global organization in the sense that how we want to run and our vision for the future and what we want to put out there is catering to all of these other different organizations. We're looking not only to making the assessments available, but also understanding different cultures. And so we're looking at adaptations, for example, in the assessments have become a big thing of what we do. We went from translating to actually adapting languages. So we're truly connecting with people. The words are making sense in a subconscious level so they can answer the questioners properly. But we had a very rich discussion recently, and Dr. Ron can probably tell us a little bit more about that in terms of how we want to look at the true adaptation of the assessments and the impact of different cultures.
Yes. Dr. Ron, I know that you do enjoy one of the studies looking at, we always, whenever we do training, we have Vanessa's picture of her brain as it reacts to the word enthusiastic in 4 different languages. And so I'm sure that sort of information will be used as you.
Well, the key component to that particular story is the value of TTI taking the time and energy to do translations and to create different versions of our assessments that are tied to the cultures and to the language specifically. Because that particular study indicated that and Vanessa has the privilege of really understanding and working in 4 languages, at least 4 that I'm aware of, at any rate. But when we gave her the word enthusiastic in different languages as a part of a brain test, what we discovered is that her response to her brain was strongest in her native tongue. And it was really exciting to see how that progressed through when she told me the order in which she felt most comfortable with the languages, and German being the last. It was a wake-up call to 2 things. Number 1, we absolutely have to give our assessments in native tongue when possible, because you get better response right out of the brain. And number 2, I ended up taking that particular series of slides and using it in schools to help second language teachers understand the total frustration a student's going through when trying to do translation into a second language, because your brain is really in overdrive when you're working in a second language. It was cool.
Yes. So we always say that in your native language, that's what you hear with your heart, not with your head.
It's where you connect at an emotional level, because
Yes.
for me, all of this was something that I was exposed to as an adult. So I learned entire theory collection in my adulthood. However, the translation of it doesn't do justice. You achieve that subconscious connection with the words only in your native language. Now, of course, it depends when you learn this second language, right? There are people who are exposed to a second or third language even from very young age. If that's the case, then you manage to do in all languages, because it's part of your being raised, and so you understand. However, if you learn it a bit older, even in your teens, all of that part is gone. So the connection doesn't happen in the same level. So it's been quite interesting for me. It was very eye-opening to understand why I couldn't really connect to certain words. And now, interesting enough, it's happening the reverse, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes in English, to me, there are things that make more sense than they do in Spanish in this case, which is my first language. So that has been definitely fascinating. But to be able to share that with our partners, especially in these new countries that we're exploring, has been fantastic. There is nobody else out there doing that understand the importance of these adaptations and how they play a key role in achieving good results in your assessment, or in your reports. Now, when I started it was in this era where we were exactly in that transition from the software where, my goodness, when I started, we still used to get faxes, and we used to have to give you a code so you can enter in your code log, and so you could process reports. But we were also ready with ideas. And back then, we really did have a very small collection of languages available. Mm-hmm. So it's been fantastic to, over the years, witness how we've been increasing those languages, how we've been also improving our processes to do so. With Dr. Eric coming on board, he taught us the right process, and now we actually follow the protocol dictated by the International Test Commission in order to make all these adaptations. So we're just getting better at how we go about adapting our tools to all of these different countries and cultures and so on. It's been fascinating.
It sounds very fascinating. Well, you mentioned something, and that kind of goes along with, let's talk a little bit about the patents that TTI has. We talked about IDS. Which patent do you think has really put TTI on the map in the last 40 years?
Well, I think it starts, and Dave should respond to those first ones because they were pretty important patents to start with.
Well, the IDS, and locking it up with a password and a link, kind of set us apart and kind of shows you that you're there at the beginning of assessment delivery via the internet. It's more bragging rights, I guess you could say, than really want to license it out, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
As I was listening to this whole thing and thinking back about Bill and TTI and Dave for that matter, maybe it's a Midwestern thing, but there's something that drives a particular group of people when they're told they can't do something. And it sets in place a response that not everyone has. And the challenge of meeting somebody saying you can't do that is overwhelming. Bill had that. And I think Bill shared it with me. And I see Dave with components of that, figuring out, let's figure out how we do that. And what comes to mind with that is that one of the other patents is in response processing. And when we came here, we're trying to figure out how you create validity and reliability and move to the next level for our assessments to convince another group of people of how great these things were, because we really do know they work.
Yes,
they work.
they do.
But now, can you put that on paper? And I'll never forget reading APA, American Psychological Association, saying, well, response processing is virtually impossible because you can't see a person's brain while they're answering questions. Challenge.
Yes, you can.
Challenge. Yes, you can. And we have 2 patents that prove that we can. A patent is awesome because it's like the ultimate peer review. Because not only do you have to do it and make sure it works, you got to prove it to a group of lawyers. So it's sort of a cool concept when you end up getting a patent. We have no intention of stopping other people with our patents. As Dave said, it represents thought leadership. And we're doing things other people aren't doing. We actually are able to see people's brain while they answer their questions. And we do that on a group of people so that we can refine our questions, improve our questions, and also question which ones are really good and bad. You combine that with the quantitative data that Dr. Eric pulls out of our assessment pool, and you have really a dynamic system.
That's very fascinating. So one of the things that you said was we go beyond different things. And one of the things that I always, anytime I'm talking to a new partner, what makes TTI so different is that we go beyond DISC. Everybody knows DISC. It's that universal language. So why has expanding beyond DISC, so including driving forces, emotional quotient, acumen, really applying that multi-science approach, why has that been so important to TTI?
I'm hoping all 3 of us will respond to this. What comes to mind immediately for me is that humans are very complex.
Yeah.
And if you only look at one dimension, it's like looking at one part of an elephant and trying to describe the whole element. We really have an opportunity with our set of assessments to look at different components of human interactions. And the combination is so powerful. And we're really working, our future is built around the combination of these 5 sciences and even going farther with them than we have up to this point. So I'm excited about when I hear the future, what comes to mind for me is the future really is tied to an expansion and an integration, a synthesis of some of these sciences.
I think 2012 was that moment when we globally decided that everybody needed to go and at least move forward with 2 theories, right? So that moment, everybody worldwide, we started this movement where we already had the assessments available. We had just launched Talent Insights a couple of years before that. And so it was a very important year where globally we achieved that change of mind where we said, now we need to go with at least 2. And that was the beginning truly of a completely different era in TTI because we went from applying the assessments that already existed. We already had EQ. We already had driving forces. We had axiology and so forth. But the integration of them became truly powerful then. And so once that we all understood the power of that, then it was game on, right?
Yes.
Globally, we started to see these changes. Everybody started to use the assessments combined. And even people that have been with us from the very beginning, like Frank Schillen in Germany, or Judy Suter, who is a big fan of having both of the theories at least, right, applied together. And so as we were having a conversation recently, she mentioned again how powerful it is to have both. And it is true, as you're saying, you get to see a little bit more of the individual. We're too complex. We cannot really describe a person just because of the behavioral aspect. Understanding their drivers, understanding the emotional intelligence, and even diving deeper with axiology components or even just the competences in DNA. It's really something that people have been learning to embrace. There's no organization nowadays where I have the opportunity to go to that don't get mesmerized by what each one of these components bring. Very seldom now I find organizations that said, no, we have enough with just this part. They might think they want that at the beginning. And once you expose them to the other part, they just want to know more. So I think that's another thing that makes TTI unique. We were truly the first ones to propose that approach. It's a multi-science approach. It's not just a single science. And from there, and of course, a lot of other competitors in the market follow. But we were, again, the original proponents of that, and we continue to be probably the strongest in that aspect.
Well, TTI is Target Training International, right?
Yes.
Well, the target actually in the beginning, it's been a while since I've remembered this, but it's a target, it's the bullseye.
Yes.
Behaviors was on the outside, and then you do motivators, you had intelligence, there was different layers to a person, right? So to fully understand them, you needed to dig deeper, and some of that you could only get through via assessments. Behavior you could learn to read and
Absolutely.
and adapt the model and understand it. So that's, yeah, back to target training, that we were that was in 84. And I think we've added a lot more assessments that kind of fill out that target.
Absolutely. So as we look back, Bill has not been with us for a while now, but how have Bill's values continued to influence the company, its direction, and its culture?
I can answer first on that one. That one, I have very, very specific things I learned from Bill. So having the opportunity to be part of the team for quite a few years, actually, before he passed, there were many things that I observe always in him and I admire, but some of the ones that I continue to still use every day are I love the fact that anytime he needed, he would roll up his sleeves and come and do whatever was needed. And I love that about him. And I make a point to be the same. It's like, if you need me to do whatever, I'll be the person. I'll roll up my sleeves and do. And it taught me humbleness. It taught me that although he was the owner of this organization, he had no issue coming up and helping change the bulbs or cutting the trees or, whatever was needed. I love that about him. He would just
repave the parking lot.
Yes. And he would wear his special outfit. So whenever we saw Bill in his special outfit, we knew he was going to work on something. And I love that about him. And I really make a point of you always being there, always being humble in whatever is needed. I'm game. He was also very generous. And that, for me, that was also something that I admire in him and that I wanted to do, right? So, for example, I helped Bill translate between all the students that he put through college in Mexico. Very few people know about that, but I help him translate. So I would often write the letters back and forwards between them or whatever the students needed. So I would communicate to him. So that went on for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And he was very, very generous with many people. He helped in many different associations, and he was very quiet about it. He, even just with the network, he was a very generous man. Anytime somebody needed something, he would be the one, how can we help? What can we do? And I learned that. So that's been one of the values that I think we use the most is, you need something, how can we help? Okay, let's figure it out. If there's a bad situation in a country, we're the first ones to say, can we help you?
Yes.
Maybe even just not invoicing for that 1 month might help you. Those are all values that I learned from Bill and have been proved over the years to be key in what I do.
Even piggybacking on that concept of when I came down, I was sort of following Bill around like a little puppy dog, figuring out what this business is all about. And I really think it was the first day he walked in to Teresa's office and he said, here's a list of partners that will not be billed for the foreseeable future. And so I got back to the office. I said, tell me what just went on there. He said, well, these are people that are really having trouble right now. And we don't need to add to their troubles. So let's get their business built. And he said, you got to remember, we make money when they make money. And if they're having trouble, neither of us are making money. So I thought that's sort of a cool concept. He was kind of willing to help people like that. The other lesson I'm still learning from Bill, you see, Bill and I went two different routes. He went into business and I went into academia. Well, in academia, you may or may not know, but we're a lot closer to God than other people. And so we had this concept that what we know, everybody else needs to know. And I really had to fight that. Even now, I have to stop myself and realize, why am I sharing this? Because Bill taught me, just like the carpeting story, that you need to address the customer's needs. My need is to tell everything I know. The need is really to identify what is needed and then to fulfill that need. And that was a lesson that he lived every day and that I'm still working to get past a culture that is not designed to figure out what people need. It is totally designed on telling people what you think they need.
Yes.
And I would say relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'd add Bud Bowers to that as well.
Yes.
The two of them back in the 80s, 90s really did build the relationship with partners, and that then built the network. And I think that gave the partners the ability to work together in partnership. Yeah, he was very generous. I do remember one gentleman got quite behind on payment, and some of us wanted to turn him off. Bill said nope, and he said, you're not going to get charged for a couple months until you work your way back. He did, and he paid back his balance. So, he was the type of guy that would work with you. Yeah.
He always did, and he always had a way to make people feel special.
Yeah.
I still hear a lot of the partners saying, well, Bill remembered this conversation with me. And I can't believe that he remembered who I was in my very first conference. That was another thing that I learned from him, too. One of the things I appreciate the most from TTI is that we know our customers. Is we know their names, and even we might not have met them in face-to-face, we know who they are. We have this embedded in the culture where we talk about the partners. We know who is who. So nobody's really just a number. To me, that has been very important. He knew who everybody was, and he had the virtue of making people feel special, because I still hear that. Last week, actually, I heard that.
At conferences, again, I started coming to the conferences as an outsider, and he would start every conference with sort of the ground rules, just to remind people that at face value, all of you are running your own businesses, and by virtue of running your own business, you could be perceived as being competitors for each other. Mm-hmm. During this conference, I want you to put that aside completely, and that as a result of being together, all of us will be better if we share the best of each of us with each other. And he set the groundwork for people to be open and to share and to help everyone be all they could be. It was just like, where did that come from? It was such a beautiful concept.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But it's helped a lot, because that's a unity he created in the network. And so up to now, people will say often, that's our favorite thing, to come and just interact with each other. And so they went from seeing each other as competitors to now it's great to be able to hang out and be together during this one time at a year. That was fantastic that he achieved that, because usually they will see each other as competitors.
All right, one final question for each of you. What advice would you give to both of our current partners and the next generation of partners that are coming in to help them maximize their impact, adapt to change, and continue to grow within the TTI network?
Well, I would add to that, if you do come to the conference, you need to network.
Yes.
Meet a few people. And I think I've seen over the years, some of our most successful partners have been in masterminds. So they constantly throughout the year are getting together, talking about ideas, working on their business. So I would say get connected.
Okay.
I agree. I think we have the expertise and the assessments, and we will always make sure that you have one of the best products in the market. However, the wisdom that they need to grow their business comes from the network. So make sure you connect. Make sure you understand that although you might be a one-person show, you have this network behind you, and it's so important that you connect with them. Connect with us. We sometimes know through different experiences, and we can advise and we can brainstorm with you. And so connecting is crucial in order to grow your business, not because you're a lonely consultant. You should feel that way. Is truly you have all of us behind. I think understanding our assessments and a little bit more on the background, because the research department has done a fantastic job making sure that all the pieces are aligned. So every single product that we have out there, we have validation for it. We have research behind it. However, sometimes it's not as simple for everybody. So reach out. We have a lot of us can share different aspects from that angle that will help you get stronger. We can arm you with the right arguments to get out there in the market, and face the competitors that we have nowadays. So reach out is the biggest thing. Either the network or us,
Yep.
We're all there to help and share our experience.
And I would say that's a two-way street. Communication really comes to mind in listening to both of you, but recognize that a lot of our ideas come from our network as well. So it's not that we are sharing out, we also are here to listen. And another lesson I really got from Bill is that our future is in listening, and then as a result, then altering our vision. And it's exciting to be a part of a unit that really does practice that.
I agree. I think the feedback is very important. And we're very lucky to have a network that does feel comfortable
Yes,
giving us feedback,
absolutely.
letting us know some of the thoughts that they might have. That is incredibly important for us. We cannot move forward without understanding what this network needs. And it's crucial for us to hear the goods and the bads, right? You learn
Absolutely.
from everything.
Yes.
And I always encourage people to give us feedback. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you need out there. Let us know what's happening that we don't know about so we can adapt.
Well, we are at time. So thank you, Dr. Ron, Vanessa, and Dave. Thank you to everyone for joining us for this very special episode celebrating 40 incredible years at TTI. We've shared stories about our journey, the people who make it all possible, and the innovations that have really shaped TTI. As we reflect on the past, we are also inspired by the future. So really continuing to spark those transformative experiences and helping people thrive every single day. To our listeners, thank you for being a part of this journey. Whether you are a long-term partner with us or a new listener, maybe someone who is just curious about the work that we do, we're excited to have you with us as we shape this new chapter. We'll be back next year in 2025 with new conversations and insights and stories to share. So until then, take care and keep inspiring greatness in everything that you do. Happy holidays, happy new year, and we'll see you next time on Working Progress.